Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Thinkers podcast. My name is Jessica, and I am a person on the autism spectrum. And I'll let the other members introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Sophie Neto. I'm the CEO of NBCS and a co-host of our podcast.
Hello, I'm Drina. I am an autistic person, and I would like to welcome you to our podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, everyone. Today, our podcast topic will be autism and the infantilization of autistic people. We will be heavily referencing part 1 and part 2 of the same topic. These posts are by Asiatu.Coach on Instagram, who is a Black, trans, autistic, and neurodiverse educator and coach. They are very amazing, and I have learned a lot from them. And we will make sure to link all of their social media networks in the bio of our Instagram recording. So please go and follow them. As I said already, they are once again amazing. Now we are going to share a post by Asiatu.Coach, and we would like to thank them for allowing us to reference them and use this. We wanted to share this all with you because the way they explain this topic is amazing, and we also wanted to give a shout out to them so that hopefully you can follow them too and know more about them.
Great. I'm just gonna share the screen here and we can all have a look at the post. So I think we're going to read out part 1 of the post and then discuss.
All right. Autism, superpower, and childish. Amongst the autistic community, many people despise the connection of autism with superpower, mainly because it's perceived as us being infantilized, which we generally tend to be. I argue that perceiving being associated with children as demeaning is rooted in childism and our toxic societal norm of stigmatizing kids/childhood. We autistics tend to carry childhood norms into adulthood, such as our special interests, stuffies, style of dress, etc. And yes, we are devalued for it, which is not acceptable. But children are inherently valuable in numerous ways, including generally being more equitable than adults before socialization of hierarchies, authentic/genuine, kind/empathetic, playful, joyous, emotionally expressive, direct, honest, transparent, etc. I worked with kids, mostly preschoolers, for a decade in varying capacities. Being associated with childlike tendencies outside of immaturity to me is a compliment, as it should be. Within colonizer society, people, women most, are valued the greatest in young adulthood, usually the early 20s. Children are immature, and after your peak of 20s, your value declines. You're beyond your peak. Your worth progressively diminishes with time because you're less productive via capitalism. Within capitalism, kids aren't valued because they can't work. Older people are devalued because their productivity decreases and is limited. Therefore, peak productivity of 20s is deemed the time of your life. The exception is men because of patriarchy, provider status. They become more distinguished with age.
All right, so now I think everyone would really love to hear your perspectives, Drina and Jessica, and there was a lot packed into that post, so we're going to break it down a little bit And I wanted to hear your perspectives and your opinions, firstly on being perceived as childish or being infantilized as autistic individuals. Is that something you have experience with? Is that something that resonates with you?
I mean, I definitely have experience with being infantilized. I mean, honestly, when people hear that I'm on the spectrum, I'm often treated as if I'm younger. Like they think I'm younger. In fact, I have an instance where I was part of the support group and I was 18 at the time, and it wasn't far from my house. And after the support group, I was going to go home. The funny thing is, the other day, I had just told the support group teachers that I was autistic because I felt comfortable enough. And that was a mistake because when I went to go home the next day, they were like, "Oh, you can't walk home." I was like, "Why not?" And they're like, "Oh, because and they couldn't really come up with a good, you know, excuse,
Mm.
but like they like wanted to call my parents and everything. And I was like, "No." So I just walked out of there.
Yeah, and
Had
you
it
feel like,
been non-neurotypical.
Yeah.
mm, that sounds really frustrating.
Yeah.
Trina, how about you? How did that resonate with you?
I think what a lot of Jessica is saying is sadly true for many autistic people. If they reveal their diagnosis, they're often treated as if of two things. One, they can't do anything and their needs aren't met in that they get understimulated, or they have things like what Jessica said, they're forced to be walk home with someone despite the fact they have the capabilities to do so. And had that said person been neurotypical, they wouldn't have ever suggested an 18-year-old needing help walking
Yeah.
back to their own house. The other way it could go is they put too much expectation on you
Mm.
and they ask you to do more than the boundaries you've set. And so you end up doing too much because you struggle to stand up for yourself. And so what happens is you start to feel overwhelmed and there's nothing you can really do about it. So there's two ways it can go. And I'm sorry that happened to you, Jessica. That must have been really hard.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Honestly, it feels like annoying. I honestly now I get annoyed because it's happened so many times where I trust people. I'm like, "Hey, I'm on the spectrum." And then they're like, and then they start treating me like I'm not capable.
And it's something that sounds like you both pick up on. You're very attuned to. You pick up on the shift in behavior towards you.
Didn't you mention also job wise it can be a problem? Like, I think I remember at one point Jessica talking about how she went to her job and she told her manager she was autistic, and kind of things started going down from there because something happened. Jessica, are you comfortable?
Um, yeah. I forget which job it was. Oh yeah, I was like doing flyer delivery. I was delivering flyers for this company, and I told the person that I was like on the spectrum, and they like started doing the job for me. And I was like, "Hello, I'm getting paid here. I'm the one out here wanting to do the friggin' work, and you're out here just doing my job for me."
Hmm. Yeah, and that's like a perfect example. Those are really perfect examples of like being infantilized because you're autistic, you're not capable. What would be if you could give advice to neurotypicals or to friends or to these leaders or bosses or managers or people around you, if you are like upfront and honest and you feel comfortable sharing your diagnosis, what would be the appropriate reaction? If they want to be supportive, what would an appropriate response be in their behavior?
As I've
Honestly,
said before, oh, sorry, go ahead.
just treat us the same way you've been treating us before you knew.
Yeah.
If I like, it doesn't need to be anything more than that. Really.
I agree with that. Adding that, maybe ask them what their boundaries are, but don't treat them any way differently unless they come up to you and say, "Hi, this is too much for me." Don't
Mhm.
assume they can't do it. Let them come to you if they need help.
Yeah.
Would be my advice.
Totally. I think that's really simple and really easy advice to follow for anyone out there watching this and that may have someone in their life that's opened up to them about being autistic. And you know, the second part of this post that we read that was really interesting was that they argue that being perceived as childish or associated with children as demeaning is rooted in our toxic societal norms of stigmatizing children in childhood. And so they're kind of saying that they don't feel it's actually a bad thing to be associated with being a child or childlike, because I'm just gonna, fast forward here. Their children tend to be more equitable, genuine, authentic, kind, empathetic, playful, direct, honest, transparent, like all of these really beautiful qualities. How did you connect with that piece?
For me, I think something very personal like this happened to me at school. I had changed high schools, and for a while I was carrying around a stuffed animal to help regulate myself because I love stuffed animals. I have a bunch of them in my room. And I had to go to the bathroom at one point, so I had left it. And I came back to finding it in the trash, and that really upset me for the whole rest of the day. And I remember the teacher having a talk about it, but I stopped doing that. And I think it really made me realize, oh, I guess I'm in high school now. I can't do this, otherwise I'll get bullied. And what was really interesting was fast forward to grade 12, which I'm in now, people have started carrying stuffed animals to school, and it's now the cool thing. So no one's getting bullied for it. No one would think of throwing another person's stuffed animal in the trash as a joke or a prank, whatever. And I think it's very interesting to see how if neurotypicals normalize something like carrying a stuffed animal to school, you're not going to get bullied for it. But when a neurodiverse autistic person does it, it's weird, it's strange, it's childish, and they deserve to get bullied for it.
That's a
And
good point.
really sad.
Yeah, it is really sad. That's a really sad thing, and I'm sorry that that happened to you. And you made a really, really good point there about neurotypicals normalizing something. It's totally fine, it's cool, it's popularized. But it's not the same the other way around. You worded that really perfectly.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
Yeah. And Jessica, how did you kind of identify with their statement of like, being perceived or being connected or associated with childlike tendencies isn't necessarily a bad thing, because children actually have some pretty great attributes that most adults lose.
The way I see it, a lot of children view the world at face value, like it is. and they don't really have to have this jaded look on life. And I think that's a really positive quality that we don't often appreciate. I mean, and I know a lot of, well, a couple autistic people who view the world the same way. And it's great. It's refreshing. They shouldn't have to be bullied or told that they're not good enough or that their way of thinking isn't good, because it's just not true.
I'm going to add on to that, agreeing with Jessica, that it's the adults in the life that tell you, oh, doing this is childish, or if you want to wear a shirt with a certain character you like, that's not appropriate for high school. It's the adults telling you, yes, kids can bully you for it, but those same kids learn it from the adults around them, and it's almost always they've tried to do it and they've been told it's too childish. And I think that's where the root of the problem is that we live in a society that really roots itself on maturity, but also othering those who don't fit to societal norms. And let's be honest, the society we live in is fit to help neurotypicals and to have neurodiverse people struggle, and it's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what would be your feedback for parents, teachers, educators, neurotypicals with neurodiverse people in their lives on this topic, in terms of like, it sounds like you both recognize that, like, yes, these childlike qualities are a really great thing. They're not something that need to be like, quote unquote, beaten out of someone. And also with like the topic of infantilization that we discussed earlier, what would be like if there was a takeaway, if we had like the teachers, educators, neurotypical people watching this, what do you want them to take away from this discussion?
Stop judging other people so much. Stop judging other people's way of thinking. Just because somebody doesn't think the same way you do doesn't mean their opinions or the way they view the world is any less valuable.
I think as long as someone isn't hurting someone or themselves, and that doesn't mean you don't like it or you think it should be get rid of, let them do their thing. You'll learn that it's super healthy for people to have, let's go back to the stuffed animal, to carry a stuffed animal rather than letting out their anger or their fear on people by bullying them. It's a lot healthier coping mechanism. And sometimes it's good to recognize, oh, I see that as childish and it isn't. And I have to recognize that and try to build on that. So what I would ask people to take away is that teach your kids to be kind and understanding, but also teach them that there are differences in the world, and just because someone is neurodivergent doesn't mean they're not smart, doesn't mean they can't be a good friend. They're just like anyone else in the world, doing their best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are really, really great takeaways. Yeah, so to wrap this up, we do have that part 2 of Asiatu's post. And we felt like that was another really big topic, and we'll break this podcast up into 2 parts, just like their 2 parts to their post. Yeah, so signing off our Neurodivergent Thinkers podcast. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And it sounds like we had some really great takeaways from our neurodivergent thinkers as well.
One more thing. If
Mhm.
anyone in our audience who is neurodivergent wants to share a moment of something similar that happened to them, feel free to share in the comments. We'll love to hear them. Because I think it's really important for neurotypicals and people to realize that it's super common for this to happen. So if you're comfortable, feel free to share in the comments.
Great. Thank you, Drina. All right, signing off. Jessica, any last words before we end today?
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
See you for part 2.
See you for part 2. Bye, everyone.
Bye.